Hi, I'm Simon Phillips, founder of the Changemaker Group and creator of changemakerpledge.com. And I'm delighted to be here on the Online Prosperity Show with Prosper. I'm going to be sharing some of the things that shaped my thinking, a little bit of a tragic story, but I promise you won't need too many tissues to get through that. And we'll have a bit of thinking about what you can do to go out there and make a positive impact.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a guest who's mastered the art of transformation, not only in his own life, but also the lives of countless others. Now, Simon, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Fantastic. Good to meet you, Simon. I mean, the pleasure is all mine. I've been looking at the stuff that you've been doing and definitely can't wait to jump into the whole story behind the Change Maker Group. Now, for those that are watching right now, Simon Phillips is the founder of the Change Maker Group, and he's not your typical executive coach or trainer. No. He's a purpose entrepreneur with a vision to create 1 million change makers, and he's going to be inviting you to be one of those if you continue watching this with us today. So I want you to imagine a world where not just a couple of hundred or the people that are in your street or in your little town there. No, I want you to imagine a world where 1 million people are empowered to make a meaningful change and are out there reshaping sectors of education, health, and how we live our day-to-day lives. And that's the kind of world that Simon is building. And I can't wait to jump in and find out exactly how he's doing that and, helping others be, do, and have a happier existence. But you might be wondering, what actually sparked this mission? Well, we're going to be diving into that as well, because Simon's journey took a powerful turn after an a life-changing car accident in 1997, which actually left him with the unshakable question, what is my legacy? And throughout this episode, we're going to be exploring how Simon's experience has led him to create a community of other change makers. So not only is he doing it for himself, but he's helping others find their own purpose and also their own legacy. And today, you're going to be hearing Simon's insights on navigating change, developing resilience, and yes, leading with love. And that is an actual thing, And that's also a concept that he advocates for to transform, the work cultures from the inside out. So if you have ever wondered about making a positive impact, I think you find much inspiration in this particular episode here. And by the end of this conversation, you might find yourself ready to take your own pledge as a change maker. Now, Simon, I could go on and talk about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. First of all, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Tell us a little bit about the day in 1997 that literally changed the course of your life.
Thank you, Prosper. And, before we get started here, thank you for opening up the space and allowing me some time to share some of these insights with you and your audience. And, all we can do is just keep stepping forward one step at a time. And if we do that with positive intent, I'm sure that we can have that big positive impact that many people are looking to have. So, as I say, thank you for inviting me on the show. So, a little bit about me then. So, born and raised in South Wales in the UK. Went to university in Scotland and lived all over England. So I've been around my own island quite a bit. And at the time of the accident, I was working for the artist formerly known as Anderson Consulting. It's now called Accenture. And it was a a lovely sunny Sunday afternoon. I'd been out with some friends in the morning and I was just driving home. And, my life was idyllic at the time, Prosper. A working class boy. I'd gone to university and made everybody in my family proud. And, I had this great job. I had my first house. I was living with my then girlfriend and everything was great. And I distinctly remember what that journey was typically like, if you like. So it was a lovely, windy country road. The ones where you can't see quite around the corner or over the next hill. Just beautiful trip home. And as I came up and over the brow of one hill, nothing. Don't remember a thing for another 26 hours. The gaps that were filled in by the police later were that as I came over the hill, a white van was coming up the other side on my side of the road. And as my car ploughed into it, I flipped and ended up at the bottom of that small hill with on the roof of the car, basically. And it took them about 50 minutes to cut me out of the car. And the policeman, this was a funny story. The policeman later said, typically after about 20 to 30 minutes, if they can't get you out of the car, then you're a goner. You're unlikely to survive this incident. Not only was I lucky to get out of the car, I was then whisked off to hospital and the surgeons worked on me all night. And I then managed to survive. But it was pure chance that I had all of those great facilities and people around me that enabled me to survive. So it was quite a hair-raising moment, but of course I don't remember any of it. I just remember about 20 minutes before and waking up 26 hours later. So it's amazing what the brain can do to sort of help you overcome a lot of these challenges by eliminating a lot of those key memories. What I did experience afterwards, and for quite a few years, was bright white flashes. I could be doing anything. I could be driving, I could be sleeping and wake up with a bright white flash. And it would apparently, the sense was maybe this was the white van, if you like, and focused in a way that made me just startle and become quite alarmed. But the whole event, because I don't really remember the actual crash, I remember waking up and being told the circumstances and then asking that question that you posed there at the front. Why me? Why have I been spared? And for months afterwards, the only thing I could do was read books, and you and I were talking about books earlier. And a phrase kept coming out of the books, which was, "What will your legacy be?" And I didn't feel that had I died in that car accident, I'd be leaving a great legacy. I was studious. I was a good boy growing up. I'd been, I was advancing at work. I was doing very well. And I had the trappings of a great life. But what was my real impact? Who'd I actually helped? Who'd I supported? Who was I in service of? And I think at that point, my sense was my main person that I was being in service to was myself. And that didn't sit well with me. And that was the start of my thinking and thought processes around, okay, how can I turn this around? How can I be of service to other people?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that, narrative, because obviously it really does paint a picture for us right there. Now, the way you have presented this is the typical linear way that life is supposed to be. You go to kinder, go to high school, get a job, get a girlfriend like you did, and obviously buy a house and things of that nature. So in a word, you are saying that is not it, because you started questioning having that in your life did not mean or do anything, yet that's the actual aspiration for thousands if not millions of people in the world right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to discount that process. I learned a lot. I acquired a lot of experience. I met a lot of fantastic people. So I'm not saying that that was wrong. It was just not 100% right for me.
Mm.
I wanted to achieve more than just, as you say, the typical linear process. Um, the typical measures of success didn't fit with me in terms of that was enough. So for me, I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to help others. And that the way my life was constructed, I didn't feel I was helping enough people quickly enough or effectively enough. I was sort of stuck in a process which earned me money, enabled me to have a great life, and maybe buy some nice things for the people around me, but I wasn't spending quality time with them. I wasn't spending sorry, I wasn't creating opportunities to enhance their lives. All I was doing was, maybe buying them things or going on holiday with them or whatever. But it wasn't structured in a way that was enhancing their lives. And as a result, I didn't feel fulfilled. And I think that's the difference. So it was a great life. I don't say anybody's wrong for doing that if that's the way their life is right now. All I'm suggesting to people is ask yourself, is that enough for you? Would you like to be of service to other people? And if you would, do you have the skill set? Do you have the mindset? And if not, then we can help. And that's what the my mission is to help people who have that desire to help and serve other people.
Mm. Now, and thank you so much for clarifying that, because obviously some other people would not understand why you wouldn't be grateful that things were sort of, working in that format. So your 26 hours post accident, obviously you're still in shock. Everybody around you is just a little bit relieved that, wow, this is not a different story after all. And you had maybe the people that mattered to you at that particular um time that came and sort of were with you. But tell us what was actually going through your mind as you then recovered, and how then did this experience start shaping the purpose that you're now living at the moment.
It's a great question, Prosper. The interesting thing is, you were saying things aren't linear. What should have happened in the perfect story is have the accident, have this light bulb moment, go out and transform my life. And it didn't quite work that way. It was have the experience, feel a sense of lack, incredibly grateful for everything I had, but wanting to do more, but not quite knowing how to do it. And as a result, drifting for a while. It was another 3 years before I left Anderson Consulting. They were just becoming Accenture in 2000. I had some internet ideas I was going to get off the ground. And it was probably about another 8 or 9 years before I started to understand the meaning of my crash, what it actually meant for me as an individual. I knew that I wanted to leave a legacy. I knew that I wanted to live with purpose, but I wasn't sure what my purpose was. I wasn't sure exactly how to go about it. So I was just going, from one job to another, from one activity to another, but I wasn't really doing any of it with a real sense of purpose. And it was only after another series of setbacks I suddenly realized I hadn't done any of the work. I hadn't done any of the, and you will understand this, Prosper, because I know you love reading too. When you read these books by people who've done great things for the world, for others, they understand themselves first. And I hadn't really done the work to fully understand myself first. And it took another series of things. So my dad dying at a very young age of 66, and my marriage falling apart, even though we had two young children. And that was, to be honest, that was my biggest nightmare, the thought of not seeing my kids every day. And then the 2008 crash, the banks and the financial hit on most organizations meant they cut back on the type of support that I was providing through training and consulting and coaching. So I was living off baked beans. I don't know if you've ever seen, I don't know if they got out to Australia, but they did big plastic tubs of baked beans. And I was just living off those
57
mostly.
varieties.
That's the ones. That's the ones. And I suddenly realized again, it was another wake up moment. Hold on. The kids have had baked beans the last 3 weekends that they've been with me. We need to eat something a bit more variety. So yeah, it was a whole series of setbacks. I was effectively living off bank loans and other resources, that whatever I could get my hands on, if you like, just to survive and keep moving forward. And so it was only after all of that happened. Oh, and feeling double crossed by a business partner that I was working with, that seemed it seemed like a grand activity he was creating, and I helped him and supported him with that, only to find out that actually the 100% focus that he had was on self-enrichment, not for the benefit of the community that we were supposed to be building. So all of that suddenly made me sit back and think, hold on, there's a message here. You haven't done the work. You haven't thought about who you are and what you want to do, and why you're here. What's the legacy that you want to leave? And it was only then at that point that I was able to move forward in a way that feels relatively unstoppable, because it's purpose driven. It's all about other people. It's all about how I can look after myself so that I can be here on a day-to-day basis with tons of energy to help other people. So that was the journey. Certainly not very linear, as you say.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for these tidbits of information. Now, this accident did not leave any sort of permanent injuries or things that would have continued, that needed attention.
At the time, I had about 3 or 4 years of things that needed to be fixed. So I had torn ligaments in my knee, not the ones that all the footballers do, but the back ones that nobody at the time seemed to know how to fix. But anyway, I did manage to get that fixed, and it's still going strong today. I had a hole in my elbow and massive bruising all across my chest, from the way that, I guess, the seat belt and the safety systems in the car had worked. I also had blurred vision, and that persisted for about 18 months. And as I say, I kept having these white flashes on a regular basis that would just sort of interrupt the pattern of the day. So those were the injuries, and all I could think at the time, and I still probably think it today, was how lucky was I? A crash like that could have ended my life, ended up with a few injuries, a few things that I could work through and get fixed. So I didn't really pause to reflect on it too much. I just sort of got on with things, and potentially to my detriment in the long run. But it enabled me to, as I say, do a lot of reading. I had a bit of a pile of books that I needed to catch up on, and there I was sat on the sofa for 3 months. So I had plenty of opportunity to catch up.
Mm. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say this with utmost love and respect, Simon. If you look at those injuries, I mean, a bruised heart, lack of vision for about 18 months and a few, on your elbows and on your feet. Is that where
My knee,
was that your
my
knees?
knee. Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously, if you then look at what then started to happen, this was a completely different person that was now presenting to the world. I mean, obviously, to the family that you had at that particular time, to the parents that you would have also had, and the way of life that you had adopted. I mean, I'm just looking at the way these things would have happened, and seemingly things that look like they are there to um take us out of our path are literally the things that we then need to focus on, because now you've got a vision to help others. You now have a heart of gold, and those are the places where the accident hit you the most.
Yeah. Well, that's lovely of you to say. And yeah, I'd never thought of it in those ways, Prosper, but absolutely I've got a vision. So this notion of a million change makers, I remember hearing once that I don't know whether it's a legacy vision of the brand Coca-Cola. Other colas are available. But they had this notion of, wouldn't it be great if everybody in the world had a can of Coke within arm's reach? And I was thinking about that, thinking, wouldn't it be great if everybody had a change maker in their lives within arm's reach when they need them? And
Mm.
so that was, part of this idea of a million change makers. Um, and so that is the vision. That's what we're working towards. And then the heart piece, absolutely, that's 100% what I'm up to on my day-to-day activities, is working with a magnificent woman called Renee Smith, who's done a whole lot of research as to the impact, the negative impact of fear in the workplace, and how if we can eliminate fear and replace it with love and bring the L word into business and into organizations, you know, people's lives can be transformed, not only in work, but then obviously they're going to be able to take that back out into their families and their communities. So it's an exciting area to be involved in, and it's just getting started, really. Renee's been doing this work for a few years, and I've joined in about 2020. But the in terms of its impact and traction, it's starting to gain traction, but only just now. So it's great to be involved.
Mm. Fantastic. Now, obviously, you presented to us a picturesque life that when you started, everything just seemed like it was all put together, and now you've presented to us a life that is coming undone. Walk us through the person you were becoming during all this time. You did mention, yes, you were eating baked beans and things of that nature, but there must have been a profound change that was also happening internally, as this was unfolding.
Yeah, I think, as I say, it was after the baked beans incident that I did the good thinking. What I was quite focused on in the early years of my business was the sort of skills that I could share, the ones that I'd learned at Anderson Consulting and in various parts of my life, even putting my degree together. So it all started, if you like, from reading some fantastic books by people like Stephen Covey and Tony Robbins and Og Mandino even. And there were some absolutely amazing books that I was reading and filling my head with. And I came out of that thinking, so one thing that did emerge strongly almost immediately after my accident was I attended a time management course. And I noticed as people come off that course, they were all excited about it. But within a week or two, almost everything they'd learned, they'd they'd neglected and put to one side. I was still excited about some of the things I'd learned. And I was trying to work out, well, why is that? And it was because I'd sort of totally immersed myself in an activity that we'd done on that program that was to list a bunch of things that you'd love to achieve one day. And I'd done that and got, thoroughly immersed in that activity. And I came away from that course thinking, great, I've got so many things I want to achieve. So it's very much in that achievement space. And a couple of years later, I was moving house and I discovered that list, and I'd already achieved all but one of the items on the list.
Wow.
And I hadn't actually read that list for about 3 years since I'd actually created it. So it's really powerful writing some of this stuff down. And it made me realize that from a time management perspective, it's not about the tactics and the techniques. It's actually about what's your reason why. Because if you've got a why you want to be more personally effective, you will be. And the quickest and simplest example I can give people, and I usually do this as a fun exercise when I'm teaching this to people, is to say, how do you behave the day before you're going on holiday from a perspective of personal effectiveness? If you're in work, I can guarantee that you'll be focused. You'll have made a list at the start of the day of the things that you absolutely must get done today. You'll delegate very simply. You won't need any instructions on how to do it. You'll communicate really clearly with the people around you as to where you're up to, what needs to be done next. And so all of those things just happen automatically when we've got to get out of there by 5 o'clock this evening, ready to pack the bags and go. At home, we'll communicate more efficiently and with any partners that we're living with or going on holiday with. We'll have set things up so that our life works seamlessly whilst we're away. These days, with all the digital technology and everything else, we'll have set it all up. We'll have done it because we're excited to be going on holiday. If we can get equally excited about the other things that we'd like to achieve, I can guarantee you, just from all the people that I've worked with over the years, you will be focused, you will be more personally effective, and you will be able to deal with life's challenges and setbacks and plot twists, as we call them in our business, just because you want to. And you don't need to have learned and studied it for years. You have all the skills that you need. It's whether or not you have the right mindset. So in my latest book called Dynamic Time Management, I explore this quite a lot to help people understand and work through a process by which they can create their own why and start to prioritize their activities against the things that they're really excited about, not just time that they spend in work. So the thing that happened to me in the early years after my crash was that understanding that life was about more than just work. So that travelator that we were describing earlier, go to school, get the qualifications, go to university, get a great job, that creates a mindset that says it's all about the work. It's all about how much you can earn from the work so that you can have a great life. And as a result, a lot of people, and you won't remember this, Prosper, you're not old enough, but in the 90s, a lot of people were out there 100 hours a week. They were working their socks off for the 2 weeks a year when they had a holiday. And their lives were totally skewed. And I was working in an environment where it was exactly like that too. And I realized that wasn't what I wanted. So this notion of work-life balance that was starting to gain some traction at that time, and flexible working, all those sorts of things, that started to shape the way that I wanted to help people, was to say, look, being a great time manager, being a great time manager is about more than the 8 to 10 hours that you're at work. It's about the 24 hours of your life every day. And how can we help you get focused on that?
Simon, I quite like that. And there's so much to unpack in there, but you had me at the excitement of going to a holiday, and so many people obviously seemingly become very efficient because they know they're going to be out of reach for 2 or so weeks that they're not going to be there. So they have their affairs in order. And the argument that you're presenting is, why don't you do that all the time anyway? And could it be because excitement has really been taken away from being an adult? Because I find that so many people, even in Australia, they have what they call the tall poppy syndrome. You just can't be overly excited about anything, even if it's something that's good for you. It's just not culturally acceptable to be happy.
I'm laughing to myself there because I've had whole tranches of my adult life where I haven't felt happy. Most people wouldn't have recognized it because I'm a naturally positive person, and I'm very focused and grateful for everything that I have, and for who I've become and for the people that I've attracted into my life, all of those great things. But I haven't, for the longest times, felt truly happy. And I think that I correlate that in my own life, in my own experience, to not feeling like I had a clear purpose. And when I discovered my purpose, it makes everything else easier. Doesn't mean to say you don't encounter challenges, and there are still problems to overcome on a daily basis. But it just means that those, I remember somebody describing it like this: imagine that your purpose is that massive wall in front of you. It means that the things like the camera here and my microphone there, they are just like small, insignificant obstacles as I look at my goal, in this case, the wall. And that's what purpose has given me, that sense of that is still important, regardless of what's going on here right now. If these things aren't great, if they're not everything that I want, if it's not making me happy in the moment, I know that I'm going to be happy when I start to think about keeping, focused on my purpose. So, but you're right. A lot of society is shaped in ways that keep us fearful, that keep us unhappy, that keep us in a space that of a lack of fulfillment. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of people talk about the anthropological backgrounds in terms of, the fear and fight and flight and all that sort of stuff. The reason why, and this is a big challenge, I think, for all of us who work in a way that is very heart driven. Human beings are wired to look out for negative news. And the reason for that is because they need to understand what's happening from a negative perspective, so they can work out, are they safe? And as a result, because of that almost hardwiring in our DNA, we still, as a race on this planet, are attracted to and watch and listen out for lots of negative news. And as a result, all of the good stuff gets buried. I put out a couple of videos recently that are looking at different very popular leaders, if you like, or very prominent leaders in the business world, to ask the question, do they care? Do they have empathy for their workers? And I put one out about Elon Musk, and the title on the thumbnail was "Awful Leader?" So it wasn't saying he was an awful leader, it was just "Awful Leader?" And then I put one out the week later about Satya Nadella at Microsoft, who is an incredibly heart-led leader, amazing guy. And I think I put something like "Caring Leader?" I don't need to ask you, Prosper, which one you anticipate did better, but it was by a proportion of almost 50 to 1 times better that the Awful Leader video did better in terms of the number of views. So there's something in that I think we need to pay attention to on a personal level. What am I looking for? Because I will find evidence of it. If I'm
Mm.
actually looking for the good stuff, I will see lots of good stuff and I'll see even more good stuff on a regular basis. But if I'm wired and I don't work on my mindset to overcome that hard wiring, and I will see all of the negative stuff that I anticipate I'm going to. So I think probably a bit of a wordy explanation, if you like, or exploration that you mentioned
I
there, but I think that's why a lot of people are not as happy as they could be.
Absolutely, and I think it's all to do. I think with it's a particular activated system, right? Do you know what I mean? If, like you say, if you want to see the color red, that's all you ever see. And
You'll
sorry to
see.
give this example, but apparently a lot of accidents actually happen when another accident has happened because everybody's rubbernecking to see what has actually happened instead of now
Yeah.
being careful to look forward and see, how you can avoid that which has just sort of happened there, etc. And I think maybe it's all to do with like we have that societal sort of expectation of things are supposed to work in this particular way, and if anything gets out of the norm, then that herd mentality kicks in, and what is not recognized is probably then deemed to be wrong. But then you have gone on and said, yes, your society might be doing whatever it's doing, painting the town red with the blood of goats or whatever it is. Sorry to bring a gory example, but you founded a community where you're supporting others through change. People are seeing the positivity that is actually happening around them, and definitely passing that on to those that are immediate to them and things of that nature. First of all, what led you to go on and create something like this? Because from what we know, you should have been curled in fetal position. Woe is me, another packet of baked beans again today. I can't handle that. I just have to look after myself. But you went on and you created something that other people can actually start growing in and start noticing a bit of change in.
Yeah, it's back in about 2013 I had a very weird dream. Growing up I loved films like Spartacus and then Gladiator, those
Right.
big bold, films. And in my dream there were two armies either side of a field ready to do battle. And as they came together and clashed in the middle of the field, one army, instead of, annihilating the other one, dropped their weapons and put their arms around the other people. And were visibly, if you like, in my dream, they were helping and supporting those people. And I just woke up with this notion of, yeah, that's an army of change makers.
Mm.
And that was the first seed of this thought. So I created the Changemaker Group, which is a consulting group, but full of very, very experienced and wonderful consultants, coaches, and trainers who can go into organizations and help people through these changes, help teams and organizations when they're trying to transform and transition. So that was the start of it all. And we set it up as a profit for purpose organization. So the profits that we created enabled us through the Changemakers community to support people in the third sector, the charities world, where they didn't have the funds and the resources to do what they'd like to do. And we also put some free training together that was available across the world. So that was the start of it all. And then more recently, this notion of 1 million change makers inspired me to set up the Changemaker Pledge, which is effectively, it's an opportunity for an individual, whether they're working in an organization or they are out there as an entrepreneur, or maybe they are a carer, an unpaid carer. I work with a lot of those with some of the work that I do. It doesn't really matter their life circumstances. What does matter is what they would love to do with that, with their energy. And if they have an inkling that they'd love to make a positive impact, then that's what the Changemaker Pledge is all about. So it's drawing in people with positive intent so that they can learn if they don't have all the skills and mindset yet to go out there and make a positive impact, but equally they can connect with other change makers and they can, in a combined way, we can make a bigger impact on the world. I think I learned a long time ago, there's only so much that I can achieve. And if you read the books of leaders, they say leadership is not what you can do, it's about what you can influence. So my attempt at influence, if you like, is through the Changemaker Pledge, to influence a lot of people out there to go and support their families, their communities, their colleagues. It doesn't really matter who they want to support, who they look to help, but that's what the pledge is all about.
Mm. I viscerally believe if you want to go far, you go alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. And I feel like this is exactly what you're putting together. But we did shed light to how society is wired for negativity. And obviously, you're trying to herd cats from the sounds of it, putting people together from all these different walks of life. And I can only imagine that building a community of change, or change makers really does sound inspiring, but I can also imagine it comes with its own challenges. What sort of obstacles would you have faced while you're trying to grow this change maker group, and how did you manage to overcome them?
That's a great question and an astute observation, Prosper, because as you say, it sounds great, it sounds wonderful, but then life happens, yeah. And we've been going at this now within the Changemaker Group since 2015, and we've got a lot of clients that we've worked with, and we continue to work with today, which is great. But equally, clients that we support. The way we think about helping clients is, can we help them develop the internal capability and capacity so that they can tackle the next wave of change without us? So we are developing change makers in organizations so they can help their own organization to keep going. In terms of the things that have held us back on occasions, it's been a lack of vision, or a lack of shared vision, if you like, from some of the people who were attracted in initially by the thinking of it. But then when they realize, oh, this means that I've got to work and think differently, and it's not just all about where's the next project coming from, or what's going to add a couple of zeros to my income this year, and it's actually about balancing the generation of income, if you like, with the time that creates to help you support others. So the message doesn't always resonate with everyone, and we talked about that earlier. And then equally, some people, they may be fearful and reticent themselves about joining a community. They might think everybody else there is already a great change maker, and they might have that imposter syndrome. That's not the case. The Changemaker Pledge, we're appealing to people at all stages of their careers as change makers, if you like. So, but yeah, there are things that hold people back that are just specific to their lives. Maybe I talk about this in work-life balance and flexible working terms in organizations as well, that if you think that somebody's going to come into your organization and be 100% available for the rest of their career, then you're living in a very different world to me. And if you think about your own life, there are times when you can put in 110%, and there are times when, for whatever reason, you're struggling to even put in 60% because there's other things going on in our lives. And so, we have to recognize that and understand that and have compassion for people in the times when 60% is them working flat out, with all of the resources they have, which just right now are less than they usually have. So that's where the whole concept of a loving workplace starts to kick in, because we don't see people just as resources to create 100% fulfillment. We see them as people that could be around here for years, and loyal, dedicated workers that might need support and help at different points in their careers, because for whatever reasons, they are not able to function fully at that moment. And so it's not about, looking at them as failures and dud resources. It's actually about these are full human beings with lives outside of the activities that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And can we help them so that they can come back and be fulfilling their responsibilities, if you like, better sooner. So yeah, it's amazing how a lot of these things come full circle when you start thinking about them in this way.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I don't know if you guys experienced this in the old South Wales. Here in the new South Wales, um, during the pandemic, we had a lot of people being told, like literally, that their jobs were non-essential. So in essence, what that meant is whatever they were doing, nobody needed for the 2 years that they were not invited back to work. And I like how your style emphasizes leading with love and putting humanity at the center of work, because so many people, they really need to heal from that. And I'm thinking that's what you're bringing to the people that you're working with.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And it's simple stuff. So whilst the L word is new for people, when we say to them, "What do you think love looks like in the workplace?" This the light bulbs go on. It's about caring for the people that we work with. It's about having compassion when they may be facing some personal setbacks. It's about having empathy when they are struggling with a certain activity for whatever reason, and it's about nurturing them so that they can grow and develop into amazing, talented workers in the future. It's not about that short-term, quick return on investment, get out of here. I mean, as wonderful as Anderson Consulting was when I started, there was a general acceptance that about 10 to 15% of new joiners would leave within a year or two because they would be struggling with the workload. And it was only, about 5 or 6 years into my time there that some of the more far-sighted and more humane, if you like, partners started to understand that, well, if we just improved the experience and enabled people to, really work at their best and supported them, we wouldn't lose half of that number, and we wouldn't be losing great people from our organization. So, there was a transformation there even while I was working there, and that doesn't surprise us now when we see just how brilliant an organization Accenture is in terms of the care for its people and the way that it looks after and nurtures talent throughout their careers. So, but that was the 90s perspective on workers.
Your pledge is to make your one of the incentives that you have, or the initiatives that you have, is to make the change maker pledge reach 1 million people. How's that going for you, and how can people be a part of it?
Yeah, that's this is the exciting thing one of the exciting things, but it's a real drive for me. So we've literally just got it going this year. We know that we've impacted and supported thousands and thousands of people already, but the actual Changemaker pledge has only just got up and running. So if people want to go to changemakerpledge.com, they'll see the pledge itself and the opportunity to sign up, and they'll get a free ebook, which is all about the sort of the fundamental elements, if you like, just to kickstart their thinking about how to be a change maker. And then they'll be part of this world that we're creating. They'll get a lot of support, and they can reach out at any time to me and other members of the community as we grow it. So the vision is to have a thriving community where people can say, look, I've got this idea. Anybody got any thoughts on, has anybody done this before? Anybody got any ideas on how I can improve my thinking, etc., etc.? And I'm feeling like I'm missing out on this bit of thinking. Can somebody help me with that? So that's the notion of it, if you like. It's there just as a support system for people that aspire to making a positive impact in the world.
Absolutely. Now, Simon, thank you so much. I will definitely put all the links in the show notes so that people can get started on their journey. And obviously, you've overcome your own personal challenges, and now you're dedicating your life to creating a positive change for others. For those that are watching, don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show. And obviously, if you find it within yourself, why don't you become a change maker yourself? In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.